So let me just get into it by saying, I know you guys made history, or herstory, with this docuseries. It is the first time we've seen a docuseries produced and put on the airwaves that centers around the matriarchal part of nature. It's usually done from a male point of view with the male animals, but this time we're dealing with the girls, and I love that. Yes, they deserve applause for that. Come on. I love that. And I also love the fact that it was an all-female team, executive produced and led by you, Miss Vanessa. And Morgan did the composing, and you guys got the biggest queen of Hollywood, Angela Bassett, to narrate it. So let's talk about that for a second. How did you get Angela Bassett to narrate Queens?
Oh, my word. When we started out the project, we said, who could narrate this show? And there was just one name. She's the queen, right? And she's played the queen, and everything about her, she's so regal. She stands for everything that we believe in and wanted to do with this show. She believes in empowering young women and helping underrepresented communities get into film. So we cut the first show, which was this one that you've just seen, and we sent it to her. And we just crossed our fingers and thought, I just hope she likes it. And she loved it. And she put her name to the series, and she's been the most amazing ambassador. But I will say, the first time when we saw her record this narration, Chloe, who's the showrunner who wrote the fantastic scripts as well, we just sat there with literally tears and laughter, because she's such an incredible actress. And she performed when she did All Hail the Queens. It literally got goosebumps down our spines. It was phenomenal.
I mean, you couldn't have got someone better. I mean, when you think of Queen and you think of Hollywood, you think of Angela Bassett.
That's
like
right.
Without question, without question. I want to talk to you a little bit before I get to Morgan about these aerial shots, though.
Oh.
Now, in an episode that you guys have not seen, there is one about elephants, and there was a shot in that broke me to tears. It broke me all the way down. And I'm saying this because I want y'all to go watch the rest of the series. So it's the scene where the elephant has passed away, and she's in the desert or the park, and the photographer director comes out to say goodbye to her. And you do that slow, deliberate zoom out, pull away from them, and you see her walking away, and the elephant just said, Vanessa, I boo-hooed. I boo-hooed like the biggest baby you ever wanted to see when I saw that. But that brings me to this episode where you use a lot of there's a lot of night vision that's used in the Pride Pack attack scenes.
Yes.
And I wanted to know if that was a deliberate choice to be done to take away the shock of the attacks being happening, because it's pretty brutal.
It is.
And it's pretty savage to watch.
Yeah. I mean, we used every top cinematic technique from Hollywood. We borrowed everything. We threw the kitchen sink at this show because we wanted it to, I hope you all felt immersed in the world, that you were there. And, you know, at nighttime, of course, you need really super sensitive cameras. And we were, you know, some of these are military grade. There's that particular look when you see the attack where they're sort of glowing. That's from military grade cameras that are picking up, you know, the heat, actually, the heat signature of the animals. So it's, yes, it kind of looks a bit more distant. You don't feel that visceral effect of the hunt, but actually it's also the only way you could really capture that footage, because it's shot outside of the moon time, so there's very, very little light. I mean, literally you would see hardly anything at all. So a lot of the techniques are determined by the phase of the moon. And sometimes we could use color, and there was the first time ever, actually, in Ngorongoro Crater, we got incredible access because we were training up a Tanzanian camerawoman, actually, to be part of our team. She's the first black camerawoman in natural history in the world. And they allowed us to stay through the night, which is, you know, it's unusual. And so some of the scenes you would have seen would have been in color, and some of them will have been in that sort of black and white effect, but that's because there was even less light, so we had to use a different camera for that.
Because when I watched it, I was fascinated by that. I was like, that is going to be the first question I'm asking you, because I was fascinated, and I know the audience would be fascinated by that too. Before I move on, Morgan, you composed the music, and I just want to say, you, excuse my French, you were badass in how you used the music.
Thank you.
Because we heard everything from rock music to, you know, some of the things that we usually hear in docuseries and documentaries. But it was such a nice blend of genres of music that you laid underneath the action. What informed those decisions?
Thank you. I mean, I feel so fortunate because this is my first time working in this genre. And to have this be my first experience and to be given complete freedom to experiment with all the genres that I come from as a producer, as an electronic musician, as a vocalist, was a rare opportunity. Though there are certain orchestral elements that we did work in, it was definitely a throw the spaghetti at the wall and let's see what sticks. And I had total freedom to do that, which is very rare.
Okay, wait a minute. So you know you can't say you were a musician and a vocalist. I'm gonna let that slide. So how did you go from that to this?
Well, I was in a band, as one does in their 20s, a French band called M83, and I co-wrote and sang in that band for 8 years and toured the world. And I woke up one day and I said, my back will not take being on this bus anymore. And I wanted to just continue to make music, and kind of had just one of those moments in life where things just kind of transitioned seamlessly. I started composing for film and TV, and it led me to ultimately working on Queens.
So how did you guys end up meeting each other? I'm interested in that story. How did you guys end up meeting and collaborating?
Well, actually, we contacted, there's a music supervisor on this show called Sarah, also a female team. And we wanted to work very closely with her to help choose tracks, and also with a composer that was used to working with commercial tracks and was a performer ideally, so they understood, you know, the pop songs and how we would choose them and would write around them. And we got a short list of about 10 composers. And we went through all their work, and both Chloe and I listened to Morgan, and it was immediate. It was like, we've got to work with this woman. And yeah, we contacted you. I came out to meet you in LA.
Yeah, you came to my studio. It was great. We watched a bunch of, I think it's because I hadn't worked in the genre before, I think Vanessa and the team wanted to make sure that I could really help. You know, music is so crucial in terms of helping tell the story as much as voiceover and the scripting. So we kind of went through various more narrative kind of musical clips, and it was game on.
Yeah, it was great. Morgan showed she worked on Mothering Sunday. I think I saw at that point, very emotional movie, and we looked at humorous scenes that she'd scored, more classical scenes, more avant-garde, and then we kind of started to evolve a style. And then actually, at one point, we just said, over to you, Morgan, we trust you. And it was amazing for me, because I know Morgan's classically trained, but also has this previous many lives. And just seeing her just effortlessly mashing the genre is what, this score, honestly, is like nothing else you'll have heard in natural history. And I've been wanting to do this for years. And most commissioners are just like, oh, yeah, we want something modern. And you start to do it. And they're like, no, we don't. No, we're going to go back to orchestra. Yeah. So I think, honestly, I'm not just saying that because it's our show, but I think what Morgan's done is truly groundbreaking.
Thanks for this.
Well, what you both done has been groundbreaking because it garnered you a Critics' Choice Award. So there's that. So you guys are doing, yes, they deserve applause for that too. Now, I know this took 4 years to bring to life. Can you talk about what happened in those 4 years and what was the final breakthrough that finally allowed you guys to get it made?
Oh, 4 years, it was probably nearer 5, actually. So we start with pre-production research. We talk to scientists. We talk to incredible people on the ground in the countries who really know the animals, who live with the animals. We work out the stories. We spend about 2.5 years filming, and that's solid. So we did 1,756 days of filming, 66 shoots in 12 different countries. And, there were times where we had 6, 7 crews out simultaneously, and the shoots would range between 4 and 6 weeks long. So it's a lot of work just getting people into the field, keeping them safe, making sure that, they deliver what we need for the story. We also had COVID in the middle, so that didn't help. But because we'd set this series up very differently, our mission was to work with people in country. We've got a phenomenal woman, Faith, who's the first black female director in wildlife ever, which...
Faith Musembi.
Yeah, so please, if you enjoyed this show, she worked on this show, but she also made the final show, the 7th episode, and it's truly moving and inspiring. But because we were training up women in country already, she had, my God, a trial by fire, because it was literally, okay, you've had this training over Zoom, we've come out to meet you, now the COVID pandemic's broken out, so you're on your own. And she literally learnt, on the job, but absolutely flew, and we were kind of reviewing the rushes that she was helping direct, and she learnt so quickly. So that was a huge challenge. And then we had about a year of editing. And then in that process is where Morgan gets very active, and she was sort of laying those incredible vocal tracks. I don't know if you picked up on those. So a lot of ideas were already coming into the edit and shaping the way that we formed the show, and we together would come out with which commercial tracks would work, and Morgan would write in and out. And then the scripting evolves. Finally, Chloe wrote the final script, and then the icing on the cake is the narration with Angela, and that happens in the very last few months, and then we deliver. But when you I think your question was when was the sort of key moment? I think it was with the narration, and we suddenly went, we've got a show, we've got a show, and she just lifted it. She took it to another dimension, I think.
I wish she was here so she could hear that you giving her accolades, but I'm sure you've given them to her many times to her face, so she don't really need to be here. But I wish she was so she could hear it again.
But but we were very fortunate. She came to our premiere, which was an amazing event. National Geographic put on the most extraordinary premiere for us, and Angela was there, and she was on the red carpet, and everyone was so excited to see her, obviously. And I went to see her afterwards, and I said, "Did you enjoy that?" She said, "Oh, I could barely look. I was so nervous. I didn't know whether it was going to work." And I was like, "My God, you're royalty, and you're so experienced." And even someone like Angela, she's still got that creative drive, and it was new for her, actually.
But that's what makes her a great artist, and that's what makes you all great artists, and having all of you collaborate together, right? Because women, when we get together, there's nothing that we can't do, right? Morgan, right. Let's talk about when the editing process was flipped over to you, how you decided what types of songs you were going to use, and if there was anything that you wanted to use that you were like, this isn't going to quite work.
Well, I would kind of watch the episodes start to finish before making any creative notes or jotting down ideas, because each episode actually has at least one moment that is so moving. I mean, I cried in many of these episodes. There's always one story you're like, oh my God.
I was right there with you. Right there with you.
It's interesting because they're more like films than episodes, and I feel like there was always a texture that would stick out to me, whether it was a quality of the light or some kind of oral metaphor for what I was watching on screen that would translate for me into, I think this episode would be cool with lots of synthesized brass, and like for this episode, and big orchestral drums, for example. So I would have discussions with Chloe prior to actually beginning and say, I'm going to do a full pass and try these various textures, and this will kind of be our base palette, and then we'll take it from there. And I would deliver a full pass of an episode so that everybody could kind of see where my brain was hearing the story being told, and then notes. Google Docs for days.
Now, this being your first time into this type of process, how did you feel the very first time you saw Queens?
I kind of had to pinch myself because I don't think I really understood what I was getting into. I was also coming off of a really intense year of work. So I was kind of running from one project straight into this one. And it was really after seeing this episode, I was like, oh, this is not anything that I've seen before. And I actively found myself with each film going, I got to step this up. This needs to be better than the last one. How do I keep pushing ahead? Because there was a pressure, like a really healthy pressure, creative pressure, to meet the mark with the incredible footage that I got to work with every day. So,
You know, when I was watching it, it was not lost on me that as I was watching it, for whatever reason, I started thinking about The Lion King. Probably because I was in The Lion King. So I was like, I'm seeing Nala, and I'm seeing Simba, and I'm seeing Mufasa. I'm like, oh my God. And I was one of the hyenas. But I did not realize that hyenas were so vicious. I'm like, oh no, that's what I was playing on a stage? That is terrible. I was so upset. But having said all of that, how did you guys land on the specific tribe of animals that you showcased in all of the episodes, particularly the one that people saw tonight?
So we work very closely with scientists, and we meticulously go through all their research, and we analyze all the different clans of hyenas and the different prides. And because we wanted to feature female power, we were looking for females that were in interesting situations. So, Shani about to have cubs, we knew that, and we knew that it was a small pride, possibly quite vulnerable, interesting dynamics that overlapped with this clan that Malkia, our queen, was running, but she was quite weak relatively, and there was Aisha, as you saw, lurking in the background. So the stage was set for a lot of interesting dynamics, and the crater's extraordinary. It's got the greatest density of lions in the world. Although if you go there, it doesn't seem like that often because, man, I don't know where they go, but they just hide. But actually, this territory was very unusual because they were very overlapping, the hyenas and the lions. So we just knew that interesting things were going to go down. And
Aisha was shady, by the way. Aisha was so shady. Speaking of the names, how did you find out what the names were of the animals from the scientists? Is that where you got the names from?
Some of them. And then sometimes they'll have a name that's their friend or their sister. You can't have a hyena called Susan. It's just not going to work.
That's not going to work.
Yeah. So
Susie the hyena. Yeah, no.
So we would work with them when the names were a bit off. We'd go, okay, we'd use the local languages and find a translation of their character and agree it with them. So it was done in collaboration. But yeah, well, actually, the second show, which I hope if you enjoyed that, you'll go on to see, is called Rainforest Queens. And the main bonobo, which is a relative of chimpanzees and us, is called Zoe. And everyone's like, why is she called Zoe? And the reason is because she was actually called Bowie, after David Bowie. Bowie. I think, I'm not sure what you say in this.
We say Bowie.
Bowie.
Yeah.
Because the scientists named each bonobo they were studying after famous rock stars. And I was like, but this is really going to confuse. I mean, actually, I think Bowie would have celebrated Queens. I'm a huge fan. I think it would have been, in his spirit. But equally, we thought it's just going to confuse people because she's a girl and he was a boy.
Okay, because I was like, where are they getting these names from? Like, everybody's got a name. Where are these names coming from? Because in and I hope you guys watch this episode too, the elephant episode, where they specifically talk about where the names came from, and the filmmaker is sitting with some Kenyan women, and she's having a whole conversation, and it's that was another moment that brought me to tears, because she's sitting with some fellow Kenyan scientists who are part of an elephant historical society that they track and keep track of these elephants and where they go and who they are and how the families move and groove, and they're having this whole conversation, and they end up having a conversation that culminates in them realizing that they are doing something that isn't organic to their culture, to the Kenyan culture. Kenyan women are expected to stay home, to take care of the children, take care of the husbands, take care of the land. They're not expected to be photographers and directors and make documentary films and documentary series. So on that note, I want to know how you guys feel being women in a space, in the composing space and in the producer and director spaces, where even though we've had women get accolades in this genre, we still, as women, still have to fight to be seen. I mean, Diane has been nominated for I don't even know how many Oscars, and she's been nominated 13 times and still has yet to win. Wow. And we've had 3 women win an Oscar, but I'm not sure if any have won in the documentary space. But I say all that to say that, how do you think we can move forward from this space and not take 2 steps forward only to be pushed 10 steps back? I know that's a huge question. I know it is. Question.
I struggle with this conversation, to be honest with you, because I feel like I get further and further away from finding an answer. That being said, it has for me personally, and I might take a little rivulet here off the question. I feel empowered by making sure that my team has women on it and that I put money in their pockets, because that's agency to me. And if I can create a tribe of women around me, and even if it's just 2 or 3 people, if that's the way that I can gently help push things forward, which is also part of why I feel fortunate to be hired on this project, is it's Vanessa and Chloe pushing me forward. That's how I think we make the difference, is just by hiring other women.
I agree.
Because once it gets into an existential, larger cultural conversation, I just get lost. I don't know how to speak to it or participate or interact with it. It feels way too overwhelming, and I would like to feel like I am having the conversation spiral up as opposed to spiral down, if that makes any sense.
I think for me, there was a lot of meaning behind wanting to do a series about female leadership in the natural world. I came through the BBC, which is hugely patriarchal, colonial, all white, all male of a certain socioeconomic class, and I fought my way through. But as I became more senior, there were no women around me at all. And I struggled to find my voice and use my power, and really had to eventually leave. And then I set up a company with my husband. I was very fortunate to have a man that's have found a partner both in my work but also in my life that supports what I believe in, and he believes in that too. And I think that was a moment where I realized we've got to bring more female leaders through, and fast. And I was sort of hoping when people watch this series, they go, there's a lot more leadership in the natural world, but also probably in our own society. And there's different ways for women to lead. And yeah, sure, there's soft skills, and many of these species have incredible soft skills, but not all of them are soft. And that's okay too. And I wanted to show that range of leaders, from, you've got gangster granny orcas that are horrendous. You've got Aisha, who's, she's a bit of a bitch, really. But, all of these, and then you've got unbelievable characters who are so torn. We've got a Gelada queen who basically surrenders her unborn baby's life to ensure the future of her daughter and the rest of her group. So there's really powerful moments of females having to step into their leadership, step into their power. And I hope that with this sort of series, ultimately women have to hire other women, and they have to help them grow, and they have to give them power, and they have to get them into positions of producing. And it's about women being able to access the money and win the commissions. And until women, you can have creative power to a certain extent if you work for a man or for someone senior to you, but until you're in that position of power, you're the one winning the business. You can't really control it, and you can't help other women.
I'm so glad that you said that, because when I was watching this series, there was an episode where Women Who Click was brought up. the organization Women Who Click.
Amazing, yeah.
And that organization is an organization that fosters budding photographers to pursue their dreams. And I had never heard of it before I saw Queens. So I'm so glad that you guys put that in. I'm so glad that you guys made this docuseries. What was, and before I let you go, what was the most daunting moment for you in creating this? Because let me tell you something, when I was watching the photographers shooting out the side of a vehicle, I'm like, oh, are they shooting out the side of the vehicle so that they can make a quick getaway? I was like, what's happening right now? You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm not scared of animals. I'm much more scared of people. So I'm actually more scared of this. But sure, I mean, it's incredible. It's an incredible privilege to be that close. And we don't try and get close to them. We let them come to us. But, sometimes they come a bit close. And we have open-sided vehicles. So lions, for example, don't see you when you're inside a vehicle. They just see the shape of the vehicle. But the minute you put your foot down, they're tuned, and then they see you as prey. But we, unlike tourists, have to film with open-sided vehicles because obviously we're moving cameras around. And there was definitely some moments in the night, particularly, when, as you saw, lions and hyenas, they turn into different animals. They're much bolder. And there are a few times where when you change the iris on the lens, it captures the moonlight. And we often will get lions that will come and look right into it. I mean, so close that you couldn't focus on it. And they'll just sort of sniff around, and you just hold your breath. And then they just move on by. But I've been able to stroke lions at night. They could come and get friendly with me if they chose, but they don't. So.
You're a brave one. I couldn't do it.
No, me neither.
I could not do it.
It's amazing, though. It's amazing.
Let me tell you something. It looks amazing. It looks like the most amazing, wonderful experience ever. But I would rather watch that on this screen than deal with it in real life because I'm just a punk. I can't do it.